Welcome to Men&Motors.
We're here today at the Classic and Sports Car Show here at Alexandra Palace. I'm Michael Infante.
And I'm Alice Dyson-Jones. We're the Men&Motors team at the moment, and we need some new presenters.
We haven't got 160 million to offer you from Amazon, but what we have got is some great ideas. So we're really pleased to be covering this really important show. There's millions of pounds worth of cars, and we've got some really great close-ups and some interviews with those that own them and those that are selling them. I'm joined today with Edward Bridger-Stille from Historics at Brooklands. Edward, thank you for talking to us today. We've got here some beautiful cars.
Yeah.
Firstly, here we've got a Ferrari behind us. Would you just like to talk us through what this Ferrari is, some approximate valuations, and why you're here today?
Yeah, of course. We've got a Ferrari 308 GTSI Quattro Valvoli. It's the top spec 308 that were produced in the 1980s. It's a low owner, low mileage car that is coming up for sale at the end of November. The interesting thing, I suppose, about this particular model is that it's the Quattro Valvoli. That's 4 valves per cylinder, a 3-litre V8 model.
Talk us now about the Jaguar. We've got the Jag right behind us here.
Well, it's the most iconic of all the types. It's the Series 1 fixed-head coupe. 3.8-litre engine, straight 6. Sounds fabulous, goes very well.
And what would you expect that to make at the auction?
Well, it's reserved pretty low at the moment at £65,000 to £75,000, I believe, but I think it'll probably exceed that.
Okay. Let's talk about the RS 2000. Really the latter-day version of the hot hatch going right the way back to
Absolutely,
the 1970s.
Yeah.
What can you tell us about that?
If anything, the RS 2000 has been the most popular car on this stand so far, and that one in particular is immaculate.
That's in the classic blue. Do you know if they came in any other colours?
No, it's completely restored, but that is the correct colour scheme.
Okay. And finally, the gull-wing Mercedes, the classic again.
It's every child's dream car. Well, it certainly was for me anyway. It's the most expensive car we've ever offered. It's a flat £1 million if you happen to have that.
Tell me, how many of these cars do you think will stay in the UK at the auctions or will be shipped abroad?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, since the advent of internet bidding and the ease of purchasing, we sell probably 20% to Far East, Australasia and the Americas.
Okay, so we're seeing a lot of British classics going abroad, but of course it cuts the other way, where we've got Ferraris and the Mercedes
coming here. We've got a very
here.
strong pound at the moment, so we've got a lot of cars coming into the UK to be sold, and you only have to walk around the show here to see how many European dealers are exhibiting.
Edward, thank you for talking for us today, and we wish you well with the show.
It's my pleasure.
I'm today now joined with Nick Goldthorp from CMC Limited, and we're going to be talking about 2 of their very special cars they've got here today. Nick, firstly, about this Jaguar that we've got. Can you tell us a little bit about it? It's an XK150, and I understand it's a very rare car because it's had very limited ownership and very limited production.
Yep, this is an XK150S 3.4 Roadster. They only made 44 right-hand drive version, so it is very rare indeed. We haven't done any restoration to this particular car. We bought it recently and we've gone through it mechanically, serviced.
So you're here to sell it today?
Absolutely, I'm trying to, yes.
And what would you imagine you'd like to see this car return you?
Well, it's on sale at $195,000.
Or nearest offer?
Oh, nearest offer, yeah. There's a little bit of wiggle room, as there always is.
It's in original colours?
It's in its original colours. It's got full history from 1958 right the way through to 2015.
We know that the XK120 was the original predecessor of this car, then the XK140. What came after the 150?
The E-Type 1961 saw the introduction of the 3.8 Series 1 E-Type Roadster, which, wowed the world and continues to date.
Okay, Nick, thank you very much. We'll go and talk about the TR5 now.
Okay.
Now, I've got to firstly register an interest here. I had a 1969 TR5, so I know a little bit about these cars, and this one in teal blue is a fabulous looking car. Can you tell us a little bit more about it?
Right, well, it's a very unique car. It's the first TR5 to come off the production line. It is very original. It has not been restored. It's just been serviced and well maintained throughout its life.
So as a modern classic, are Triumphs now making a comeback? We haven't seen a new Triumph car in many, many years. So, Spitfires, TRs, Dolomites, Stags, are they making a comeback now as classics?
Well, yes, they are becoming collectible. Obviously, the values of them are quite low, and they're a good what we would call the starter classic. Somebody could get into them without spending 50 or 60,000, you know, for maybe.
I think I noticed this
10
one's
or-
just under 80,000.
Yeah, it is an expensive TR5, but
It's a beautiful one.
Number one.
It's number one.
Mechanically, this is very good. It runs and drives very well. It's very well sorted.
So maybe I'll have to get my checkbook out for this one then.
That would be good.
Thank you, Nick.
We can do a deal.
So I'm now joined by Nigel Copcutt, who owns this rather fabulous S Plus 2 Elan, or do you want to correct me on that one?
It's plus 2S.
S Plus 2S.
Yeah.
Talk us through this car now, Nigel. What have we got here?
Well, basically, I bought the car about a year ago from an 83-year-old gentleman that owned it from new. We knew that there would be some body modifications and things doing to it because it had been stored since about 2007 with a minimum amount of things being done to it. Basically, what we did was we ended up replacing the major components like the drive shafts, and we found that anything that was rubber on it was solid, so we ripped all that off, and we ended up replacing all four corners of the suspension, the brakes and everything else like that, all the fuel lines. It's had a new alloy fuel tank, the electrics, and we just went through the car really.
So you've completely modified the car to bring it up to a current modern day spec.
Yeah, we have, but in keeping with the historical standards
using
where
original
we
parts where
can.
you can.
So it's still an original car as much as it can be, but it keeps up with modern traffic, and it's been fully sort of like rebuilt and recommissioned.
It should go around corners faster than modern
it's brilliant,
traffic.
absolutely brilliant.
Tell me, did you have any problems with the fiberglass body on these things? Because they were famous for starring and all sorts of blistering.
I mean, this had already had a body respray before we got it, so a lot of that was taken care of. But the very nature of what it is, over time, it will show a few cracks and it will star and everything else like that with use, because we do use it. And you just get it resprayed.
Are you thinking of selling the car?
No, not at the moment anyway.
If you were tempted by, the Sultan of Brunei coming round here today with his checkbook, what would you be looking for?
Oh, well, leading question. I don't know. I'd quite like to keep it to get it finished, if I'm totally honest. There's still some interior work I'd like to do to it. But you're still talking about a lot of money. It's gone up.
Nigel, thank you very much. Thanks for joining us
today.
My
pleasure. All right, thanks very much indeed. Good to talk to you.
I'm with Samuel Laurence of Samuel Laurence, and they have an eclectic collection of cars here today. We're still right in front of this DS21 at the moment, and now Samuel's going to tell us a little bit more about it.
Yeah, we purchased this from the second owner, who had purchased a car from his boss back in the early 80s. He purchased it as a labour of love. He left Citroen as a mechanic, and then set about the rebuild just to bring it up to this level.
Right.
And then carried on that maintenance throughout its 33-year ownership.
This car's a concours winner, yes?
This car has been European champion since let's go back to 1987, when it won its first Benson Hedges trophy. And since then it's maintained, I think it's got 14 now Benson Hedges trophies, over 200 concours wins.
Okay, so what is this car going to be selling for?
It's on the market now for 90,000.
The DS series was famous, of course, for its suspension.
Revolutionary. I mean, the lights that follow corners now on modern Range Rovers, originated from this very mark. It's the suspension, hydraulic.
Let's talk about the Bentley now. We've got an S3 over here.
Yeah, we have.
And
the Bentley
a little bit of history on this car.
Molenaar. It's a 64, so 63, 64, produced in drophead coupe Ferrari and the standard coupe. So we have the coupe here today.
And how many miles is this car? Do you have an idea of how many miles?
Yeah, they go on forever, but this one's done 65,000 miles. It's finished in gunmetal grey with red interior. It's retailing today at £125,000. We've had it new to launch to this very show. It hasn't been available on the market. It will sell for near that price. And in the current climate, when you have DB4s selling for £300,000, £400,000, £500,000, a car that was almost double the price back in '64 of that very Aston Martin is now a fraction of the cost.
And it's a very long car as well.
It is long, 5.6 metres, I believe.
It's a big car.
5.7 metres.
Let's talk about the Shelby now. The Shelby's a very special car as well.
It is. The Shelby is the GT500 from '67. It's been in the UK for quite a while. Yeah. It's been over here, and then it fell into the hands of a loving owner who decided to give the car to a well-respected restorer called Alan Faulkner of Dragon Restoration. And when he finishes one of his cars, he puts the Dragon symbol on the engine bay, and everyone looks for the Dragon rather than the Shelby badge.
The valuation of that Shelby?
It's on the market for 170.
Last but not least, you've got a Diablo over there, which is one of the very rare right-hand drive versions.
It is. It's a VT Roadster, one of 20 built. Right-hand drive, one owner. Fortunately, we managed to find the car. It was the best of the best. It's permanent four-wheel drive. It is a roadster.
And the value of that?
That's up for £235,000, which, again, looking forward, I mean, that's a car of my generation personally, and a car that was a poster pin-up, much the same as many other marques have been in the past. I think that's a great buy. I think that's a £500,000 car in 6 years.
Samuel, thank you very much for your time today. We wish you all the best and having a good show.
Thanks very much,
Thank
guys.
you. So I'm now joined by Anthony Godin of Godin's. Anthony has many of his motorbike features here today, and Anthony sadly and I met actually over the late departed Laurence Chrétien, that was a bike collector, and my brother-in-law. And Anthony very kindly got involved at the divestment of the stock and sold one of the most prized possessions, which was a Brough SS80.
That's right, yeah.
Do you handle many of those bikes, Anthony?
I've probably had 20 Broughs through my hands in the last 2 or 3 years because the market for them has really improved. But I've had quite a few over the years, but of late more of them come out of the woodwork because their values have trebled, quadrupled.
Well, we've got one of Laurence's bikes here today. We'll have a look at that a bit later, and that's a Norton. Can you just tell us about the Norton?
Yeah, it's a very nice Norton Model 18, which is a competition-style off-road bike. But it's quite rare because it's a pre-war bike, which not many of them exist. And it's a very nice thing.
Very nice bike. And the value of that being sold here at the day?
I would think that they're worth between £8,000 and £12,000. It's that kind of market for them.
I know you're busting to tell us about this Vincent Shadow right behind us.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit more about this bike.
Well, this is a Series C Black Shadow, which we have for sale at the moment. Again, Vincent's have been at the forefront of the collector market in the last 4 or 5 years. It's a very iconic thing. It's a very special motorcycle, especially in view of where it came from and the time that it was built, because in the 50s when these were available, they were the fastest thing on 2 wheels. So they really do go. But it's more of the technology that was involved in them as well, because there's an awful lot of aircraft type technology in a motorcycle of that kind. What's interesting about this particular bike is in 51, when that engine was built in February, it was about the same time that John Surtees started his apprenticeship at Vincent. So it is possible that he may have even worked on that particular motor.
What sort of valuation would you put on this Shadow?
I've actually got this for sale at the moment for £57,000.
Well, thank you, Anthony, for joining us
You're
today,
welcome.
and we wish you well with the show.
Many thanks.
Okay, well, continuing on our tour of Alexandra Palace, I'm now joined by Sales Director Niall Cruickshank from JD Classics. Niall, you've got some fabulous cars here today, and our special attention's been drawn to several, but you've pointed me in a slightly different direction with the car market. Can you firstly tell us what JD Classics does?
Sure, absolutely. We've been in the classic car business 28 years, and we have a huge engineering facility in Essex. We have everything under one roof, which is very different from the other businesses we sometimes compete against. So in that building we have an engine shop, a machine shop, a body shop, everything we need to prepare a car from start to finish. And what this means is we can control the quality of the work and how quickly it happens. So the net result is that we are the most successful concours restoration business in the UK and around the world, actually. We've won something at Pebble Beach for 6 years in a row.
Let's talk a little bit about the Ferrari, the GTS that we have here.
Yep.
Can you tell us a little bit about the history, what year it is, and a little bit about it?
So what we have is a 1973 Ferrari Dino GTS. It's a right-hand drive car, so one of the very rare right-hand drive cars. Usually about 10% of Ferrari production is right-hand drive. Mm-hmm. It's had a recent restoration, so we're talking perfection. We've also had a good look at the car and had gone through it in our workshop to make sure the standard's incredibly high. If you look closely in the car and the detailing, that's what the extra investment is for, to make sure that the car is absolutely mechanically perfect, but also ready to be driven. Somebody could drive out in this car and go and drive it really hard and enjoy it, and it'll perform better than it was when it left the factory.
So this is a 2.4 six-cylinder engine?
Absolutely, yeah. The Ferrari V6 from the racing program that Dino, Enzo Ferrari's only illegitimate son, started working on a V6 engine, and this car was named after him as a tribute to him as he worked on that engine.
It's fantastic. Now, talk about the Lamborghini, which again is a very special car.
So a Lamborghini 400 GT 2+2, great V12 Lamborghini engine, lots and lots of power. It's actually a very similar engine to what became the Miura engine. If you look at the two side by side, they actually look quite similar. But the car again is in the details. Some of the details in that car are absolutely exquisite. Some cars become classic cars. That car is always a great car. So if you look at the dials, they're all Jaeger. They're like watches. There's some absolute beauty around the car. If you look at the A-pillar, it goes the other way around. Just an amazing, beautiful styling exercise. And there's only 4 right-hand drives in the world, so it's a very rare car.
And of course, finally, this other car here, this rather special one that's over in the corner. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, 275 is one of my favourite cars ever built. So it's at that point with Ferrari where the race cars and the road cars become very different. And this one feels like a race car when you drive it. The most beautiful lines. That one happens to be a 4-cam, so it's a long nose with a torque tube. So it's the end of the development of the 275. Just very beautiful, but also very smooth to drive and very exciting and light. So it changes direction absolutely beautifully. But even just to look at it, it's just a dream.
$500,000 to $3 million plus is the kind of price ranges we're looking at a lot of these cars. Are you getting any serious buyers coming to the show?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we know a lot of the collectors that have been here, but we've met some new people as well. And there's new people coming into the market all the time, and we'd love a piece of that action.
And generally speaking, in the market, in classic cars, you're seeing as a company, JD Classics, an increase in business?
Absolutely. The last months have been incredibly busy. We deal in very rare cars, you can tell by the sort of numbers we've been talking about. And that particular segment of the market is continuing to do very, very well.
Neil, thank you very much for your time
today.
Pleasure. Well, now I'm with Xvaier Molenaar, and Xvaier has 3 very exciting cars on the stands today. Let's start with the Lancia. Tell us a little bit about that.
So we brought a Lancia Delta Integrale, the Evo 2, which is actually the last model produced. The car we brought is a Blue Lagos. There were 201 made, and they had a particularity, which is the very sharp blue color and the white leather Recaro interior. As there are only 201 cars, they're very difficult to find, and this one is very particular because it only has 38,000 kilometers, and it's absolutely brand new.
Okay, and we see from that car that it's €100,000. Have you had any interest at the show so far?
Yes, we had some inquiries. It must be from production street Lancias. It must be one of the most expensive ones around. But then again, it's one of the best, and we don't mind taking it home because it's a one in a lifetime opportunity to buy something like that. You can restore stuff, but you can never ever get as close as that to factory new condition. Yeah.
Now let's talk about the Ferrari. The first one we'll talk about is the Testarossa TR that we've got here behind us. Tell us a little bit about this car.
So it's a particular car, apart from the fact that it's a regular 512 TR. The car has been sold new, or was in the showroom in Italy back in 1992, and the company went in bankruptcy, which was something that happened even around Ferrari.
Yeah.
And the car was kept new for 2 years. And they eventually got rid of the whole bankruptcy thing, and the car was sold to its first owner, who drove it a little bit until we got our hands on it. The price range of a good TR now is about 180 to 250 in euros, and they are going slightly up, even if the market is still going strong. It's a bit calmer now.
Okay. Let's talk about now the dark blue 550.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that, because I believe that's a very, very special car.
Yes, it's actually my pride and joy. I've presented it to the market first time here. It's nowhere to be found elsewhere. There's the 550, which was a car that was developed after the death of Enzo Ferrari by Niki Lauda and Michael Schumacher together, was the better car.
Yes.
I mean, the Testarossa, even the last model, was still, technically spoken, not the best in the world. So the 550 is actually a car that was produced and designed by competition drivers. They knew what they were doing. So you have a very big engine in the front. You have a very good touch with the road. It's an extraordinary car. So in America they decided to have a go at the world speed record, and they achieved that with the 550. Following up on that, they made a small series of 33 cars that were a copy of the car that did the speed record. There's the car that did the speed record is actually in the museum in Maranello, and 33 were offered for sale to good customers like Ferrari does. And this is one of them. It's actually the only one in blue of 33 cars produced.
Xvaier, thank you very much for your time.
My
We wish
pleasure.
you well with the show and hope it goes well.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, we're at DD Classic stand and I'm joined by Chris Wainwright, their sales manager. Chris, we're looking at this rather splendid Aston Martin right now, and of course, this being the era of Spectre 007, could you tell us just a little bit about this car and why you think it might have been Bond's choice?
Oh, it's a sexy little beast, 5-speed manual gearbox, plenty of grunt, and just overall nice car.
And it would have pretty much chased the foreign cars off of the road back in those days.
It would have absolutely murdered anything Ferrari.
Tell us a little bit about this particular car. This is a DB5, 1965. What engine would this one have in it? Do you know?
4.2.
So 4.2, 6 or 8 cylinder?
6 cylinder.
It's a 6 cylinder. And the value of this particular car, do you think today?
This car is £625,000.
625,000. So you're looking for a special buyer for this car. Now, as the price of Aston Martin DB5s increased, particularly as a Bond movie would come out, do you get a lot more interest because of the raising profile of the cars?
Definitely. I mean, there's a new James Bond film out that stimulates interest in the product, definitely, yeah.
Have you driven this car?
I have indeed, yes.
Okay, tell us a little bit about the driving experience. How does it feel?
Well, it's a very, very good balanced car, both in the city and on the motorway. There's plenty of grunt and it would keep up with most modern cars today.
Do you think you'll sell this car at the show this time round, or is it really more a showpiece to show what DD Classics does?
I think it's more of a showpiece to show the other types of cars that we do sell.
Yes.
It has stimulated a lot of interest, whether that's the back end of James Bond, but we have had some good trade interest in the car.
Chris, thank you very much for your time today.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm joined now by Paul Michaels, who's the owner and chairman of Hexagon. The car behind us is beautiful 911 SC, which is a 1983 model, I believe, which is the last of the SCs before they went into the 3.2 Carreras. Would have been a time when you were selling these cars new.
That's it, so I remember them very well. Now, this particular car is amazing because it's only done 8,000 miles, and very nice that whoever owned it really did look after it amazingly well, so it was obviously a toy.
The value of this car you're selling here today?
It's about 80,000 pounds.
I know you've had a lot of interest in it because your chaps have been telling me this has been, quite an icon and a lot of people interested. Have you had any offers yet? Anyone's come to whistle it away from you?
It sounds silly, but we won't be open to offers because our big problem is if we sell this, where do you go and get another 8,000 mile target? You can't do it. And our big problem today is not so much selling, it's replacing. And finding low mileage cars.
The iconic whalebone tails on these were what really set these cars aside back in their day as being the icon, the sex symbol of the vehicles.
The whale tail.
Whale tail, the picnic table. I mean, these things had all sorts of different labels in their name. How do people now view those? People of a certain age now, not in our age group, but I'm talking about young people. They look at them and find them amusing that we had these on cars?
Well, some people like them, some people hate them. The people that hate them reminds them of what it used to stand for.
Right.
And I think some of the younger people today find it amusing.
Paul Michaels, thank you very much for joining us today, and we wish you well with the rest of the show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Okay, I'm joined now by Richard Biddulph, and Richard has quite an amazing and stunning collection of cars here today. Richard, can you tell us just a little bit about this Bentley that we've got here behind us?
Well, it's a blue train. It's made by Racing Green down in Wales. It's an exact, I say exact, it's a very close facsimile of the original blue train, which is worth a king's ransom. And if you don't happen to have a king's ransom, you can come up with a quarter of a king's ransom and buy one of these.
So a quarter of a king's ransom being roughly, are you prepared?
350, 380, somewhere in that region.
Okay.
It's an R-type chassis, rebuilt and stripped every nut and bolt as new.
Yes.
We've inserted a B80 engine, 6.8 litres with 4 carburetors, and any man with red blood in his veins is going to want to drive it, and any mother that sees it coming down the road is going to lock her daughters up. Simple as that.
So Richard, tell us a little bit about yourself as well. You started Vintage Cars, I hear, 8 years ago.
Yeah, I've been doing this for 8 years. We're one of the bigger pre-war classic car dealers in the UK and Europe for that matter. We sell about 200 cars a year. We try and sort of bring something for everything onto our stand. So we've got some E-types, we've got some pre-war stuff, we've got a silver ghost for the retired colonels, we've got this for the red-blooded males, and we just try and have a good variety of stuff, but all top quality.
Thank you very much for talking to us today, and we wish you well with the show.
Great to be on Men&Motors, what a pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, all the best.
Cheers,
Bye-bye.
Richard. I'm joined now by Nick Aaldering, which I'm told is the right pronunciation. Nick is from the Netherlands and he runs a company which is called The Gallery. This is quite a rare car, this DB2. We certainly don't see many of them even here in England.
No, it is. It is actually a DB2 of 1952. It's a DB2 convertible. It's a rather rare car. As you say, nowadays we're talking a lot about DB5, James Bond. But then again, DB2, as you can see, is a lovely car and rather a rare car. This is actually an original delivered English car, so with English title and registration. Left England when it was 12 years old, traveled around the world and ended up in Holland through France, and it is now with us, and maybe it will stay again in the UK.
And what engine's in that Aston?
It has the straight six famous engine with the two carburetors. It's mechanically overhauled, let's say about 9 years ago. The body has been restored.
And that's a regular 4-speed box?
Yeah, regular 4-speed manual gearbox, well driving,
No power steering?
No power steering.
No air conditioning?
True, honest classic car, hard working.
It's for men only?
It's a man car, yes indeed.
What would that be selling for today?
In euros we are talking about 335,000 euros. Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about the Ferrari. We've got the Ferrari here, which again is a very rare and valuable car. Tell me a little bit about the Ferrari.
Yeah, that's a very special car. This is a Ferrari 365 GTB4, as they nicknamed it the Daytona. It's a car of 1972. This specific car here has only done 11,000 miles from new. So the car was storage for over 30 years. So as they say, it was a real barn find. They found the car a couple of years ago in America, and it is generally completely original. So that's very rare.
And the value on that car?
This is a car you were talking about in euros, 995,000 euros. That makes approximately...
Just short of €1 million.
Yeah, short of €1 million, yeah.
And have you had any interest in the car in the first day of the show?
Yes, I must say, we have two people who are generally interested in the car, but such a thing you don't buy in 5 minutes. So we will invite the people to our home in Holland for some test driving and some evaluation of the reports. But I must say, we are rather close, yes.
Nick, thank you very much for talking to us today. We wish you luck with the rest of the show, and hopefully you find homes for these cars.
We will do our best. Great, thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
We're still here at Alexandra Palace, and I'm now joined by Niall McCart, who runs Retrospective Scooters. They're in the business of restoring scooters, and we're going to see some great examples of those. So firstly, Niall, what's the main interest when someone comes looking for a scooter?
They want something with a bit more style, and a classic scooter is a great alternative to, a lot of the modern transport that you see around today. So for city dwellers and anyone that wants to...
And going for the older bikes, so obviously you're restoring bikes, and scooters have been around for over 50 years now.
Yeah.
How safe are these bikes? What's the power of them? What are the brakes like? How do you restore them with a modern twist nowadays?
Well, with the scooters, the power is, slow speeds, but there are upgrades that can be done to them, better braking, better electrics, better overall reliability can be done to these classic scooters to make them more user-friendly, a daily usable bike. So that's what we tend to do when we do our restorations.
And the kind of customers you're getting to buy them, are they typically gentlemen of a certain age, or are you getting youngsters on them?
We are getting all ages, male and female. It's just across the board, really.
So typically the cost of a restoration, so somebody brings you a bike or you buy a bike, it's in a bit of a condition like we've got some examples here on the stand. How much work, number of hours, and sort of the cost at the end of it that you're going to be selling a bike for?
There would be two examples of that. A full restoration might cost 3,500 upwards to 5,000. We'd also do just overhauls of engines and mechanics, which can be as little as say £500 or £600 up to £1,000. It's whatever the customer wants. Valuations range between say 5,000 for fully restored to 8,000 for the really rare restored models.
Well, thank you very much for talking today, Niall, and we wish you well with the show, and hope you make many sales of the bikes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.